Welcome into the Fill in the Blanks podcast. I am Jarvis Davis. We got a lot on board for today. Falcons draft. We got a lot going on with them, and also the Atlanta Hawks. What's going on with them? They're getting ready to go into the playoffs. Are they going to be ready to do that? But but before we get to all that, and also guys, don't forget you can always follow me on social media at JarvisD90. Tenitra Batiste is not with me today. She out handling some business, but she'll be back with us on next week. So don't worry, don't fret. So you just got me. You gotta look at my face for the next 20 or so minutes. But before we get into all that and about what the Hawks gonna do in the playoffs, the Atlanta Falcons completed their draft. There are a lot of things that went down that was going through my mind as far as when the Falcons picked Kyle Pitts, and and I think that we learned a lot from this draft. I think we learned about what Matt Ryan is going to, how long he's going to be around. Maybe for the next 2 years. I believe that he's going to be around for at least the next 2 years. But when you think about it, there are a couple of different factors as to why that is. And I will say this: the first one, I believe, is what he's brought to this field or what he has brought to this team. When Matt Ryan was drafted in 2008, he was essentially looked at as the guy that was going to save this team. A lot of people didn't believe that. A lot of people hadn't heard of the skinny kid coming out of Boston College, but the Atlanta Falcons saw something in him with Thomas Dimitroff and company to be able to say, hey, this guy can come in and win for us. And shout out to my guy, Conrad Vessel. Appreciate you checking in. And I'll be doing this throughout the show because I'm here by myself and I want to talk to you guys as well. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat box. Oh, yeah, this is on YouTube as well. So I want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Fill in the Blanks 23. So well, as we go along, I'll get to your comments, and we're gonna sit here and talk about the Atlanta Falcons. But as far as Matt Ryan goes, the first thing that I believe that is the main reason why they decided not to go with a quarterback at all is Arthur Smith is a first-time head coach. And as a first-time head coach, you're looking at this roster and evaluating and looking at how and why can you put wins together? How can you win the fastest? That's what the head coach mindset is like. Because when you look at this roster, there are some pieces on here. There are some very key pieces that can be used to win games. And if you're a first-time head coach in Arthur Smith, you gotta look at this roster and say, "Hey, I can win with this," because he's not interested in a rebuild. He said it as such. Hey, I'm not interested in a rebuild. If you want to rebuild, you got the wrong guy. You hired the wrong guy, and I totally understand that. Because I even said this when he was first brought in as the head coach. Anybody that can get Ryan Tannehill paid can have Ryan Tannehill looked as a viable quarterback in the NFL, a viable starter in the NFL, you got to give him credit. You got to give him credit for that. I'm all in for that because when you talk about a former league MVP, and that's not easy, y'all. Yeah, there just can't be, oh yeah, Kyle Shanahan was calling plays. No, you can't do that. You can't just explain it away like that. There has to be some talent there. There's some talent there. So I think Arthur Smith looked at this roster up and down and said, you know what? The most important position on the field, I can get with. I can make this happen with better coaching. And don't let me emphasize that with better coaching and better scheme, I think I can make this work. I can make this thing work. So that's why you have the Kyle Pitts pick, in my humble opinion, and that's why you didn't see a quarterback drafted. They didn't use the draft pick on a quarterback at all. And when you think about that, it kind of really, really tells you where the Atlanta Falcons are going forward. Now, the second round pick, Richard Grant, the safety out of UCF. I really like him because is a guy that is a ball hawk. He's a guy that can play very many multiple positions. He can line up at corner if need be. And when you have those pressure packages in DNPs, as it said from itself from the beginning, that he will be using guys from all levels, meaning secondary, linebackers. He's going to be throwing the kitchen sink at opposing defenses. And that's the thing that we kind of missed out on. Dan Quinn has been a guy, hey, I want to play coverage and I want to rush from my front four. And that has not worked and in the past. So when you think about the Falcons taking Richie Grant in the second round, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have an issue with that at all. I got a chance to see him live down at the Senior Bowl, and you can kind of tell that this dude loves the ball. And he said that as such when he was drafted by the Falcons, that hey, the ball loves me. And one thing I've always said about guys in the secondary, if I was starting a team, I would always want guys who from Florida. You can say how you feel how you want about that, but I've always said that guys from Florida, they're a different breed, and I would love to have those type of guys in my secondary because they know how to get down and they have that confidence, they have that swagger. Shoot, the arguably the best football player, definitely the best secondary player in the history of NFL football prime time is from Florida himself. So I think when you think about that and that type of attitude that Richard Grant is going to bring to the table, I'm super excited about that. We got a couple questions coming in here on the comment section. This is from my guy Jupis5. Jupis5, he said, are Drew Dahlman and Jalen Mayfield day one starters? That's an interesting question because I believe that the only guys on this offensive line right now, as we sit here today on May the 4th be with you, by the way. I'm not a Star Wars fan, but we're not gonna get into that right now. But I'll go ahead and play the game with y'all. But as of today, I don't think so. I don't think they're starters. I don't think anyone's a starter, by the way, because when you think about it, those guys were drafted to come in and compete. I know you're trying to hear I know you're tired of hearing that because he kind of got wore out in under the last regime in Thomas Dimitroff and Dan Quinn. But that's just what it is. I think those guys were brought in to say, "Hey, we're going to push." Jalen Mayfield has talked about being willing to play that left guard position. Is Matt Gono? A lot of people forget about him. They put a second round tender on Matt Gono, so obviously they see some value there. They didn't want to let him walk. So it's going to be a lot of competition up front. But I will say this. I'm kind of intrigued by Mayfield because given the fact that he played right tackle in college, people talking about how he's going to bump down inside to play guard. And shoot, that sounds eerily familiar to who Caleb McGarry is. Because in pass protection, Caleb McGarry just doesn't really have it right now. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt right now because they're going to need him to contribute as a starter. Like they need him to start. This dude was a first round pick. Now, granted, they didn't draft him, but you want to try to get some value, some type of any from a snap standpoint, because he does have some strengths, and that is run blocking. You can kind of see what that's like. You can see him working with Chris Lindstrom and how those guys have become a nice little tamble in the running game, specifically. But I'm not really too high on Caleb McGarry once Matt Ryan drops back to pass because it can get really ugly when it comes to veteran guys like Cam Jordan, and that guy's within the division, and you talking about Shaq Barrett. It is super, super hard to protect guys that know your weakness. They know all of your weaknesses, and the main weakness is something that can get your quarterback injured. And thankfully, that hasn't not happened for Matt Ryan. But when those guys are going to have to come in and compete at the end of the day, Drew Dahlman, center out of Stanford, I am all for competition at center, at that center position, because I wasn't too impressed by what I saw last year. It is it's not a it's interesting because when you look at what how that offensive line shaked out last year, you had a lot of guys on that line that pretty much knew they were going to start. Now, from a future standpoint, from looking forward, Chris Lindstrom, I love Chris Lindstrom. I was able to check him out the first day in practice and walkthroughs and stuff like that. You could just see this guy has what it takes to be successful in the NFL. And I think it was no secret that Caleb McGarry struggled. That was just what it is, and he struggled based off of what the evaluation was coming in for him. So, if to answer your long question, long answer to a short question, Jupus, can I call you Jupus? Yeah, it's going to be a competition at the offensive line, and as a fan and as a person who covers this team, I'm all for that. Like that's because cream's always going to rise to the top. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So we got the first round pick and Kyle Pitts. We talked about Richie Grant. The second round pick, the third round pick, Jalen Mayfield. Thank you for coming on there, and make sure y'all subscribe to the YouTube page at Fill in the Blanks 23. We definitely want you to subscribe to our YouTube page because we actually broadcast live on YouTube as well, and on Periscope and on Facebook. So multiple platforms, no excuses, right? So third round pick, Jalen Mayfield. We got Drew Dahlman in the fourth. Kind of talked about him and what he's going to bring to the table. Like I said, he's going to come in and compete for a starting position. But here's my biggest thing. My biggest issue as far as Darren Hall as their original fourth round pick, the cornerback out of San Diego State. He's a versatile guy out of San Diego State. You know, they've dipped into that pool before with DeMonte KZ, and it turned out fine. He just wasn't able to stay healthy enough to be able to stick around on this roster for the Falcons. My biggest takeaway, first takeaway was Matt Ryan. You know, the signs and stuff like that as far as what he's going to be going forward with his team. But the second one with to me was they didn't pick a defensive lineman until the fifth round. Now this team, everybody knows how much they have struggled touching the quarterback, as I like to refer to it as. They don't touch the quarterback often. And you can even go as far as say that, hey, as a team, they're a bunch of virgins. I know you probably hate that analogy, but that's what it is. And being that they have not been able to get to the quarterback on a consistent basis for the past at least 5 years, maybe 6 years, the entire Dan Quinn regime. Well, I give him 2016. Vic Beasley was a one-man wrecking crew. Talk about how that's an old opinion. That does not exist anymore right now because Vic is not even in the league anymore. But when you think about the discrepancies and not being able to get to the quarterback on a consistent basis and consistently putting your secondary in situations where they have to cover for 3 to 4 and maybe even 5 seconds. That's why you saw a lot of guys come in and really just pick this defense apart. That's why you couldn't hold on to leads, because once you got the lead, teams start going into hurry up mode. They start going to passing the ball pretty much every other down or every down because they're trying to come back. And you see, they were able to do that because that defense wasn't able to get off the field on third down. So when you have all of this information coming into this draft, that's the only thing I really question with Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith is that you had some really big issues with not getting to the quarterback. And you bring in Dean Pease, defensive coordinator for the Titans who had retired. You brought him out of retirement. And when you think about the scheme that he comes in, I can see how he can possibly think about like, okay, I'm gonna throw multiple guys. I'm bringing guys from every level, meaning secondary, linebacker, and defensive line. I'm gonna shake some things up. I'm gonna do some show blitzes. I'm gonna send some zero blitzes at these opposing quarterbacks, and this is gonna be a new look team. And I get that. I understand that, but there are gonna be some situations that call for essentially the four guys or five guys that you send or rush, they're gonna have to whoop the man in front of them. And that has been a problem. They haven't been able to do that. So I don't really necessarily have an issue with the guys that they took. I just have an issue with where they took them. Because the way you draft is essentially is where your priorities are. And we know that Terry Fontenot has been adamant about the priority being best player available. Best player available. He has done that. He consistently did that throughout this draft. Because I really had an issue with the Kyle Pitts initially because I think you had a guy that played offensive line and Panay Sewell who can come in and be your day one starter, and you let those other guys figure it out. Caleb McGarry, I'm sorry. Go and see if you can go play guard. We didn't draft you. Sorry. And you solidify the offensive line. You get some guys in who have some real potential to be really good up front. And when you talking about, and forget all of that, oh, they got first round draft picks all up and down the line. Who cares? If all of them can play, that's all that matters. And you'll figure out the contract situations later because you want guys who come in and have an immediate impact. It's obvious because when you go with a tight end and number 4 overall pick, who is the highest tight end drafted in the common draft era, that's what you look for. You're trying to win right now. Like I mentioned earlier, Arthur Smith wants to win right now. He wants to win right now. So you're geeking up your offense. You have plenty of weapons. You have a Calvin Ridley. You have Matt Ryan as your quarterback. You bring in some guys who in Jalen Mayfield in the third round who was evaluated. A lot of people had him going in the second round, so you got some value there. You hope those guys come in and compete and possibly start for you. Richard Grant, you want him to come in and play. You want him to continue to show that, hey, I was a ball hawk in college. I can be a ball hawk in the NFL because that's where I am with him. So not only do you don't draft defense linemen earlier because I feel like it should have been a priority. I would have gone with multiple defensive linemen. They did, but they went in the 5th round, like I mentioned earlier. So Taquan Graham drafted in the 5th round, 148th overall. He's a defensive tackle / defensive end out of Texas. I actually got a chance to check him out down in the Senior Bowl as well. Now, mind you, the Atlanta Falcons selected 1, 2, 3, 4 guys who were down there at the Senior Bowl. So that goes to show you they want some guys that with some experience who can come in and contribute. They're looking for those system guys that are coming in to contribute. But when I think about Taquan Graham, I was there going through my notes and everything. You know, I had a couple of notes down there when I was at the Senior Bowl, and I really started to take a look at what those guys brought to the table or bring to the table. And Taquan Graham is a guy I don't think he can be that great of a pass rusher. I'm just be honest with you. But if you're bringing him in to be a rotational guy and be solid against the run, I'm okay with that. As long as he'll come in and get whooped and blown off the ball, win it on first and second down, I'm pretty cool with that. I don't have an issue with that. But it just goes back to what I said. If that is your first defensive lineman that you take, and based off of what I've seen and some other people who know football as well, he can't touch that quarterback. I'm questioning it. I'm sorry. I'm questioning that because you passed up on several guys that were available earlier on in the draft. I've been pounding the table for guys like Rashad Weaver out of Pitt, guys like Patrick Jones, who was taken in the third round by Minnesota. Minnesota, that makes me feel happy. That makes me feel like I know what I'm looking at or I know what I'm talking about because the Vikings have always found guys that can play football. And I'm talking about on the defensive end side. From when you going back to Jared Allen, to Daniil Hunter of today, and Everson Griffin, they just had always been. They've done really well in evaluating defensive ends and guys that can get home because that's what is so important in this league today. Like you have to be able to rush the passer. You cannot get away with things like that. You cannot do that. So I think that the Taquan Graham pick don't really care for that one. But the next pick in the fifth round, I really like Adetokunbo Ogundeji, the defensive end out of Notre Dame. He was a team captain. He had led a team in sacks last year with 7. So I'm real cool with him. I think you guys are gonna like him. I'm not saying he's gonna be a 12 sack guy, 13 sack guy in his rookie season, but I say he is a guy that can probably come in and get you 4 or 5. And when you're talking about mid fifth round pick, hey, that's all you can ask for. He can be a contributor. He can be a guy who can come in off the bench for you in that rotation of defensive line because when you're talking about rushing from different levels and sending guys and having a multiple defense, you want to run a 3-4, you want to run a 4-3, you want to keep the offense on their toes, you're going to need guys who are versatile. Now, I will say this: that is one of Taquan Graham's attributes that a lot of teams were looking at him for. They thought that he can be a defensive tackle / defensive end, but I'm not. I'm just not sold on him. I really would like to see what he's going to be able to bring to the table once they put the pads on in the summer. But Ade Ogundeji, that's a thumbs up for me. I really like what he brings to the table. And also, you got Avery Williams, cornerback out of Boise State. He's a return guy. He had 9 returns for a touchdown. Really solid player. I really enjoy what the Falcons are trying to do as far as special teams go. They're making a real priority to get some people out there that can make plays because that's what they needed. They haven't had anybody effective returning kicks since Devin Hester. Let's just keep it all the way above. And that's sad. And I think there was some trepidation when it comes to guys returning kicks because even with Brandon Powell last year, I remember him doing an interview on 929 The Game. We had a chance to bring him on and talk about his experiences so far as a Falcon. And he couldn't just catch the ball out of his mouth. If I had $1 for every time he said, just catch the ball and give the ball to the offense, I would have at least been able to go to Fogo de Chao and get some lunch because it was every other word. Just get the ball to the offense. I got to catch the ball and get the ball to the offense. And I'm just not a fan of that. When in special teams, I think aggressive. You got to be able to get the ball out, Get somebody back there who can take it to the house because your offense needs that because that was an issue last year as well because Matt Ryan and company will have to go 75 yards every time. Every time they get the football, and when you have the defense not turn the other teams over, and you're not getting any help on the return game, that can wear on you. That's why you saw the Falcons put up so much yardage because they had to go the distance of the field and they flamed out by the time they got to the red zone. So I think that with Terry Fondo and company making it a priority for the special teams to get a guy in here who can take it the distance, a guy who is a specialist, I think that's a really good thing to see. And plus, it's a fifth round pick, and you more than likely, hey, he's a guy that could possibly make this team. But one thing about these mid to late round picks, that's how these guys make teams. That's how they make the club. Is making sure they are exceptional on special teams, and I'm really excited about what he is and what he can bring to the table. And then also they signed him Cordell Patterson. Cordell Patterson is a guy who knows he's taking the ball out and he's gonna get the green light. So making that third unit better is something that will help this team as a whole, offensively and defensively. Because when that special team is rolling, there are going to be some opportunities for both sides of both units in offense and defense that can help this team possibly make one play that can basically turn a game around. And last but not least, Frank Darby, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. This is another Senior Bowl guy. He is a guy that I really like. He is a guy that goes up, competes for the football, and he is just a ball of joy when he's talking about personality and what he brings to the table on the football field. It is something I'm very interested to see how he fits into this offense. Is he going to be able to first of all make the team, and then possibly be able to get some reps with this offense and see what Matt Ryan can do with a weapon like that. And here we go. Got to take a couple comments here. It's from my guy Dewan. Yo, Jarv, I felt like Terry Fondo wanted to draft a quarterback with number 4 overall pick. I think Arthur Smith didn't want to draft a quarterback with the first. That's interesting because when you think about it, Dewan, and appreciate the comment, there is something that I go back to when we talk about this whole Falcons drafting quarterback situation. I think initially you may be onto something because that's what, in my mind, when Terry Fontenot, when the report came out that Terry Fontenot did not want to restructure Matt Ryan's contract, I think in his mind he possibly wanted to bring his guy in. And I totally understand that. I get that. General managers want to have their guys. They want to bring in their guys because their guys, if they are correct about their guys, you're talking about job security. You're talking about benefit of the doubt. You know somebody who got the benefit of the doubt and had job security, who many thought shouldn't have? 2 words for you. Thomas Dimitroff. He got it right with Matt. So that's why he stuck around when everybody thought, well, most people thought he should have been fired when Mike Smith was let go. So much so that a local radio host said that, well, hey, what is he doing here during the press conference? So yeah, I understand why Terry Fondo may have seen that situation and like, you know what, I want to bring my guy in, but he could not because they had to get up under the salary cap. And obviously with a pandemic going on and it not going up normally like it does, because it was projected to be a little bit over 200 million, then it bumped down to 182, maybe 183, I believe. So that's a huge difference. So if the pandemic didn't happen and that salary cap would have been over 200 million like it was supposed to be or projected to be, you may have seen the Falcons draft the quarterback at number 4. But being that they had to restructure, and let me explain something about this restructuring piece. People think that, oh yeah, he's taking less money and then that money goes away. No, it's not true. That money goes to the next year. They basically take it off the upcoming year's salary cap so you can kind of function like they've been trying to do. So, and when you restructure a player, more than likely you want that guy, or you're forced to want that guy to be around for the next couple of years because essentially you're going to pay out that money that you restructured because you pushed it back. So that's what you're looking at right now with Matt Ryan because he's on the books for maybe like 26 million this year, I think 40 something million next year, and for another 40 plus million in the following year. But they have a potential out after 2022. So they definitely have some decisions coming up, that's for sure, as far as what they're going to do with Matt. But he's here for at least the next 2 years. I will give him that. And I think not drafting the guy, not drafting a quarterback at all, not even a developmental guy, I think that has something to do with it. And I think the message is pretty clear. But the one to your question, though, I really believe that initially Terry Fontenot probably thought about it. I'm sure he thought about it. And if you really look at it, though, there were some reports that they really like Trey Lance. If the 49ers would have drafted Trey Lance, they would have drafted Mac Jones, and the Falcons would have had their pick of Trey Lance or Justin Fields. Who knows? Because you know me, Kyle Shanahan has found a way every year, seemingly since he left, to take it to the Falcons. It might not be intentional, or knowing Kyle Shanahan, it may be intentional. It's like, hey man, let me go up and jump up in front of the Falcons and take Javon Kinlaw when I know they need a pass rusher. And, Kinlaw is going on to be a solid player, of course. Of course he has. You know what? Hey, Falcons, I want to trade up to your position. No? Okay. All right, I'll go in front of you all. Hey, let's see what's going on. Move on up. Now they have the number 3 pick. They pick Trey Lance. But if they don't pick Trey Lance, I'm really interested to see what that scenario would have looked like or how that would have played out. But it didn't. And I think something else to add to that, DeJuan, was Arthur Smith. I think he is a guy that pretty much extended Ryan Tannehill's career. He looked at Matt, got a chance to know him. He said, hey, you're a former league MVP? Oh, shoot. You went to a Super Bowl too? Man, what else you did? You got 55,000 yards? Oh, man. Whoa. You were a run call play away from winning a Super Bowl? Yeah, I can work with that. I can work with that. So if you don't take anything away from what happened over the weekend in the NFL draft, one thing you can take away is that Matt's going to be here. He's going to be around. And this offensive line is going to compete. There's going to be a lot of guys compete for some starter positions. I say a lot, but it's only 5. Only 5 slots. I think Jake Matthews is locked in. I think Lindstrom is locked in. And hey, and let the chips fall where they may after that. Because it's a new regime, it's a new day. I believe that this regime really believes in competing and raising the level of your game up. If you don't, hey, we got somebody to replace you. And when you think about that type of mentality, that's something that's been missing for the past few years. Wow, I didn't even get to the Atlanta Hawks. I'm so sorry. But make sure you guys go out and check out Fill in the Blanks podcast with Tenitra Batiste and Jarvis Davis. That's me. That's your boy. On Spotify, Google Podcasts. We're on iTunes as well. Go subscribe on our YouTube page at Fill in the Blanks. FILLINDABLANKS with Jarvis Davis and Tenitra Batiste. You can always catch us every Tuesday at 4 o'clock right here on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope on Twitter. I promise you, we're going to read your comments. We're going to respond. And I appreciate y'all for checking me out today. Tenitra Batiste was away handling some business. We'll be back next week. Appreciate y'all, FIDB fam. Peace.